10 life-changing lessons I learned after 2 years in a nursing home. Secrets to thriving in old age. Have you ever stopped to think about what really matters as you grow older? When I moved into a nursing home at the age of 82, 2 years ago, I thought I knew what to expect. I imagined a quiet life, days blending into each other, filled with routine care, maybe a few visits from family, and a slow retreat from the world I once knew. But the reality of aging in a nursing home has been nothing like I expected. It's been a journey of unexpected twists, some that warmed my heart, others that tested my resilience, and many that completely reshaped how I see life itself. In this video, I'm going to share 10 profound lessons I've learned over these 2 years. Lessons that have changed how I live, how I think, and how I feel about growing older. These aren't just for those of us in our later years. They're for anyone at any age who wants to live more intentionally and find joy in the journey. Some of these lessons might confirm what you've always suspected about aging, while others might challenge your assumptions and inspire you to see your own future in a new light. I encourage you to stay with me until the very end, because the final lesson was the most transformative for me. It shifted my entire perspective on what it means to age well, and I believe it could do the same for you. If you're new here, please take a moment to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on more insights about aging, wisdom, and living a meaningful life. Now, let's get started with the first lesson. Lesson 1. Loneliness is a habit you can break. When I first arrived at the nursing home, I was certain loneliness would be my constant companion. My husband passed away a decade ago, my children were busy with their own families, and most of my lifelong friends had either moved far away or were no longer with us. I thought isolation was just part of the package when you reach this stage of life, something you simply have to accept and endure. But after 2 years here, I've come to a startling realization. Loneliness isn't a sentence handed down by age. It's a habit, one that you can break if you choose to. I've observed 2 distinct groups of people in this nursing home. There are those who retreat into their rooms, closing the door behind them, staring at the walls, and waiting for someone to come check on them. They sit in silence, convinced that no one cares, and their days stretch out in a haze of solitude. Then there are others, like my dear friend Clara, who refuse to let loneliness define their lives. Clara is 85, with no family nearby to visit her, but you'd never know it from the way she carries herself. Every morning, she wheels herself into the common room, her face lighting up with a smile as she greets everyone she passes. She's always cracking jokes, asking people about their day, and sharing stories that make us laugh until our sides ache. One afternoon, as we sat together sipping tea, I asked Clara how she stays so vibrant despite having no one to come see her. She looked at me with a twinkle in her eye and said, "I don't wait for company to find me, I make it happen. If I want to talk, I roll up to someone and start a conversation. If I want to laugh, I tell a silly story. Happiness doesn't come knocking, you have to go looking for it." Her words hit me like a lightning bolt. I realized I'd been sitting in my room, waiting for someone to rescue me from my loneliness, when I could have been the one to change it all along. Inspired by Clara, I decided to take action. I started small, saying hello to people in the hallways, even if I didn't know them well. I joined a bingo game in the activity room, even though I'd never been a fan of the game. I asked a woman at my table about her grandchildren, and before I knew it, we were swapping stories about our families. It wasn't an overnight transformation, but slowly, my world began to expand. My days, once silent and empty, were now filled with voices, laughter, and the warmth of new connections. What I've learned is that loneliness isn't about how many people are around you. It's about whether you're willing to reach out and connect. It's a choice, not a condition. If you're feeling isolated, whether you're in a nursing home or living on your own, don't wait for someone else to break the cycle. Take one small step today. Smile at a neighbour, strike up a conversation, join a group activity. You'll be amazed at how quickly those small steps can lead to a fuller, richer life. Lesson 2. Independence is a muscle. Use it or lose it. One of the most striking patterns I noticed when I first moved in was how quickly some residents let go of their independence. I met a man named Jim, a former mechanic who used to spend his days fixing cars, with nothing but his hands and a few tools. When I first met him, he was still capable of doing basic tasks, tying his shoes, cutting his own food, walking to the dining hall. But over time, I watched him start asking the staff for help with these things, even though he didn't really need it. At first, it seemed harmless. Why not let someone else handle the small stuff? But within a year, Jim had changed. He couldn't tie his shoes anymore. He struggled to hold a fork. He stopped walking altogether and relied on a wheelchair. It wasn't age that took his abilities. It was his decision to stop using them. Watching Jim's decline was a wake-up call for me. I realized that independence is like a muscle. If you don't use it, you lose it. And once it's gone, it's incredibly hard to get back. I made a promise to myself early on. If I can do something for myself, I will, no matter how long it takes or how uncomfortable it feels. Every morning, I button my own shirts, even though my fingers are stiff with arthritis. I walk to the dining room instead of taking the wheelchair, even if my knees protest with every step. I pour my own water, fold my own laundry, and make my own bed. It's not about proving anything to anyone. It's about holding on to the pieces of myself that make me feel like me. I've seen the consequences of giving up too soon. There's a woman named Betty who used to be an avid gardener. When she moved in, she could still walk to the courtyard and tend to the small flower beds the staff set up for us. But she started taking the elevator instead of the stairs, asking for help with her gardening tools, and eventually stopped going outside altogether. Now, she can barely stand for more than a few minutes. It wasn't a sudden illness that took her mobility. It was a series of small choices that added up over time. My advice to anyone, whether you're in your 30s or your 80s, is this. Don't let convenience steal your independence. Aging doesn't take your autonomy in one dramatic moment. It chips away at it through tiny decisions that seem insignificant at the time. Every time you choose the easy route, letting someone else carry your groceries, taking the elevator instead of the stairs, skipping that morning stretch, you give up a little piece of your strength, your mobility, and your sense of self. If you're still living on your own, keep moving, keep doing, keep challenging yourself. Climb those stairs, cook that meal, fix that squeaky door. Every effort you make today keeps you independent tomorrow. Lesson 3. Routine isn't boring. It's your lifeline. Before I moved into the nursing home, I thought routines were for the young. Busy schedules for busy lives, filled with work, errands, and social plans. But after 2 years here, I've seen firsthand how a lack of routine can unravel a person, no matter their age. There's a man named Tom, 87 years old, who has become a role model for me. Every morning, without fail, Tom wakes up at 7 a.m. He shaves, combs his hair, puts on a crisp shirt, and reads the newspaper over a cup of black coffee. At 9 a.m., he takes a slow walk around the courtyard, waving to everyone he passes. He has lunch at noon, plays cards at 2 p.m, and spends the evening listening to classical music on his little radio. Tom is sharp, engaged, and full of life. On the other hand, I've seen residents who have no routine at all. They wake up whenever they feel like it, sometimes at 6 a.m, sometimes at noon. They skip meals, stay in their rooms, and let the days blur together in a haze of inactivity. These are the folks who seem to fade the fastest. Their bodies weaken, their minds slow down, and they lose interest in the world around them. It's not just a matter of physical health, it's about the structure that keeps us grounded. I've learned that routine isn't boring, it's a lifeline. It gives your body and mind something to hold on to, a rhythm that keeps you steady when everything else feels uncertain. After watching Tom and others, I decided to create my own daily plan. I wake up at 8 a.m., make my bed, and have a cup of coffee while I watch the sunrise from my window. At 10 a.m., I take a short walk around the hall, even if it's just a few steps. I eat lunch at noon, play cards, or read a book in the afternoon, and make a point to chat with someone new at dinner. It's not about keeping busy for the sake of busyness, it's about giving my days shape and purpose. I've noticed the difference in myself. On days when I stick to my routine, I feel more alert, more engaged, more like myself. On the rare days when I let the schedule slip, sleeping in, skipping my walk, staying in my room, I feel sluggish, foggy, and disconnected. Routine isn't just about structure, it's about keeping your spark alive. If you want to age well, whether you're in a nursing home or still at home, build a simple routine and stick to it. It doesn't have to be complicated, just a few anchor points to give your days meaning. It's the scaffolding that holds you up when the years start to weigh you down. Lesson 4. Your mindset is your mirror. When I first moved in, I assumed the happiest residents would be the ones in the best health, the ones who could still walk without a cane, hear without a hearing aid, or see without glasses. But I was wrong. Some of the healthiest people here are the most miserable, constantly complaining about the food, the weather, or the way things used to be. Meanwhile, some of the happiest residents are the ones with the biggest challenges. There's a woman named Ellen, 88 years old, who has severe arthritis. Her hands are so stiff she can barely hold a spoon, and she's in pain most of the time. But every morning, Ellen greets everyone with a smile. She asks how you're doing, shares a kind word, and never misses a chance to laugh. I asked her once how she stays so positive despite her struggles. She looked at me and said, "I can't change the pain, but I can change what I look at. I'd rather focus on the good things, a sunny day, a friend's smile, than dwell on what I can't control." Then there's Phil, 79, who's in great physical shape for his age. He walks a mile every day, has no major health issues, and still has a full head of hair. But Phil is miserable. He spends his days grumbling about everything, what he's lost, what he misses, what he can't do anymore. The difference between Ellen and Phil isn't their circumstances, it's their mindset. Ellen chooses to see the good, while Phil chooses to see the bad. I've learned that your attitude doesn't just colour your experience, it creates it. Your mindset is like a mirror, it reflects back what you decide to focus on. I've started practicing this myself. Every morning I ask myself, what's one thing I can enjoy today? Some days, it's the taste of my oatmeal. Other days, it's the sound of laughter in the dining hall. It's not about ignoring the hard stuff, it's about choosing not to let it define my day. If you want to age well, work on your mindset. It's not about pretending everything's perfect, it's about deciding where to put your attention. Wake up each day looking for something to appreciate, even if it's small. Life will reflect back the beauty you choose to see. Lesson 5. Family fades, friends. Fill the void. When I first moved into the nursing home, I thought family visits would be the highlight of my days. In the beginning they were. My daughter would bring my grandkids, and we'd spend hours catching up, laughing and reminiscing. Those visits gave me something to look forward to. a bright spot in an otherwise unfamiliar place. But as the months turned into years, the visits became less frequent. My daughter got a new job, my grandkids had school and sports, and life just got in the way. Sometimes weeks would go by without a visit, and I'd find myself staring at the phone, hoping it would ring. At first it hurt. I felt forgotten, like I'd been pushed to the sidelines of their lives. But then I started noticing something. The residents who spent all their time waiting for family visits were often the loneliest. They'd sit by the window, watching the parking lot, growing more disappointed with each passing day. Meanwhile, the ones who built friendships within the nursing home were the happiest. They always had someone to talk to, someone to laugh with, someone to share a meal with. There's a man named Mike, 83 years old, who became a close friend of mine. Mike's kids live across the country and only visit once or twice a year. But you'd never know it from the way he lights up the room. Every morning, he has coffee with a small group of friends in the dining hall. In the afternoon, he plays poker with a crew he's nicknamed the Card Sharks. At dinner, he sits with different people each night, making sure everyone feels included. I asked him one day how he stays so positive, despite seeing his family so rarely. He smiled and said, "Family's great, but friends are my daily bread." I stopped counting the visits and started counting the people who are here for me every day. Mike's words changed everything for me. I stopped focusing on when my family would visit and started focusing on the people around me. I made an effort to sit with different groups at meals, to check in on my neighbours, to join activities even when I felt like staying in my room. I started a little book club with a few other residents. We read a chapter of a mystery novel each week and talk about it over tea. The more I invested in these friendships, the less lonely I felt. My days were no longer defined by who wasn't there, but by who was. The truth is, our families love us, but they have their own lives, jobs, kids, responsibilities. They can't always be there as often as we'd like, and that's not a reflection of their love. It's just the reality of life. But we have a choice. We can let that make us feel forgotten, or we can build connections right where we are. I've seen it time and time again. People who wait for family visits often end up disappointed, but those who put effort into making friends, into being part of a community, thrive. Because at the end of the day, love isn't just about who's related to you. It's about who shows up, who cares, and who makes your world a little less lonely. Lesson 6. The past is a treasure, not a trap. One of the strangest things about getting older is how the past starts to feel more real than the present. I can remember my childhood with crystal clarity. The smell of my father's pipe tobacco, the creak of the porch swing at our old house, the sound of my mother humming in the kitchen as she baked bread. Those memories are so vivid, it's like I could step right back into them. But ask me what I had for lunch yesterday, and I might have to think for a minute. I've noticed this in others too. Conversations here often drift to the past. Stories of first jobs, young love, the way the world used to be. And I understand why. The past is comforting. It's a place where we were strong, where we were needed, where life felt full of possibility. But there's a danger in spending too much time looking backward. It can make you forget that you're still here, still living, still capable of making new memories. There's a man named Ed, 90 years old, who's a perfect example of this. Ed used to be a salesman, and he can tell you every detail of his best deals, the clients he won over, the trips he took, the awards he earned. But that's all he talks about. He never joins activities, never asks anyone about their lives, never shows interest in the present moment. It's as if he's decided his life is already over even though he's still very much alive. Then there's Ruth, 86, who strikes a beautiful balance. Ruth loves reminiscing about her past. She'll tell you about the dances she went to in the 1950s, the dress she wore to her wedding, the first car she ever drove. But she doesn't let those memories stop her from living in the now. She's always trying new things. Last month, she joined a painting class, even though she'd never held a paintbrush before. She's curious, engaged, and present. She once told me, "The past is my roots, but today's my branches. I've got more yesterdays than tomorrows, but that doesn't mean today doesn't count." Ruth's approach inspired me to find my own balance. I love my memories. They're a treasure that keeps me warm on hard days, but I don't want to live in them at the expense of the present. So I make a point to share my stories, but then I ask someone else about theirs. I reminisce about the past, but I also try something new, like joining the gardening club or listening to a new genre of music. The past is a gift, but it shouldn't be a trap. Savor your memories, but don't let them keep you from making new ones. The present is still yours if you show up for it. Lesson 7. Small joys are big wins. As we age, our world naturally gets smaller. The grand adventures, the career milestones, the big family gatherings, they fade into memory. What's left are the everyday moments, the simple routines, the little things that fill our days. At first, I thought this shrinking world would feel empty, but I've learned that these small joys are the biggest wins of all. There's a man named Henry, 81, who lights up every time he gets his daily peppermint candy. He keeps a little stash in his drawer, and whenever someone stops by, he offers them one with a big grin. It's such a small thing, but for Henry, it's a ritual of comfort and connection. I've started paying attention to my own small joys, the first sip of my morning tea, the sound of birds chirping outside my window, the way the sunlight streams through the curtains in the afternoon. These moments, once overlooked, have become the highlights of my day. I've noticed a pattern here. The residents who embrace these small joys are the most content. They find happiness in a warm blanket, a good laugh, a familiar song on the radio. But I've also seen people who focus only on what they've lost. The trips they can't take, the foods they can't eat, the activities they can't do anymore. The more they dwell on what's missing, the less they see what's still there. That's when bitterness creeps in, when days feel empty, when nothing seems to bring joy anymore. My advice is simple. Look for the small wins. They're everywhere if you pay attention. Maybe it's the smell of fresh coffee, the sound of a loved one's voice on the phone, the feeling of a soft sweater against your skin. These tiny moments don't seem like much, but they add up to a life that feels full, no matter how small your world becomes. Happiness isn't always in the big things. Sometimes it's in the cracks of the everyday. Find one small joy today, and you've already won the day. Lesson 8. Curiosity keeps you young. One of the most unexpected lessons I've learned is the power of curiosity. I used to think curiosity was for the young, kids asking why about everything, teenagers exploring the world, young adults chasing new experiences. But here, I've seen how curiosity can keep you young, no matter your age. There's a woman named Lila, 89 years old, who's the most curious person I've ever met. She asks questions about everything. Why the sky is so blue today, what's in the soup we're eating, how the coffee machine in the dining hall works. She's always asking the staff about their lives, wanting to know about their families, their hobbies, their dreams. Lila's mind is sharp, her eyes are bright, and she has a youthful energy that's infectious. On the other hand, I've seen residents who've stopped wondering. They don't ask questions, don't try new things, don't show interest in the world around them. These are the folks who seem to age the fastest, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Their spark fades, and they retreat into themselves. I've come to believe that curiosity is the secret source of youth. It keeps your mind active, your heart open, and your days fresh. Inspired by Lila, I've started cultivating my own curiosity. I ask the nurses about their hometowns. I read articles about things I've never understood, like how airplanes stay in the sky, and I even tried learning a few words in Spanish from a caregiver who speaks it fluently. It's not about becoming an expert, it's about keeping my mind engaged. Age can take your strength, your speed, your hearing, but it doesn't have to take your wonder. Stay curious, and you'll never feel old. Lesson 9. Gratitude turns less into more. It's easy to focus on what you've lost as you age, your strength, your independence, your old routines. But I've learned that gratitude can turn less into more. There's a woman named Sue, 84, who lost her sight last year due to macular degeneration. It was a devastating blow. She loved reading, painting, and watching old movies. But instead of sinking into despair, Sue found a new way to see the world. She told me, "I'm thankful I can still hear the rain. I can still smell the flowers in the courtyard. I can still feel the warmth of a hug." Sue's gratitude isn't fake positivity. It's a choice that gives her power. It's inspired me to practice gratitude every day. I'm thankful for my creaky knees that still let me walk, for the oatmeal I can still taste, for the chatter of voices in the dining hall that reminds me I'm not alone. Gratitude doesn't erase the hard stuff, but it makes what's left feel richer, fuller, more meaningful. I've started a little ritual. Every night before bed, I think of 3 things I'm grateful for from the day. Some days it's big things, like a call from my daughter. Other days it's small, like the way the sunset painted the sky orange. This practice has changed how I experience my days. It's like putting on a pair of glasses that make everything a little brighter. If you want to age well, start counting what you have, not what you don't. Gratitude turns scarcity into abundance, and it's a gift you can give yourself at any age. Lesson 10. You're still writing your story. The most profound lesson I've learned came to me just a few weeks ago, and it's the one that's had the biggest impact on me. For a long time I thought my best chapters were behind me. I'd had a full life, marriage, children, a career as a school teacher, travels with my husband, holidays with my grandkids. I assumed that moving into a nursing home meant my story was winding down, that I was just waiting for the final pages to turn. But I was wrong. Watching the people around me, I've realized that your story doesn't end until you do. There's Anna, 91, who decided to teach me how to play chess last month. I'd never played before, and I'm terrible at it, but we laugh so hard during our games that my sides ache. There's my roommate, Carlos, who introduced me to jazz music. I'd never listened to it before, but now I can't get enough of Miles Davis. There's the knitting group I joined, where I'm slowly making a scarf for my granddaughter. Every day, I'm adding new lines to my story, even if they're small ones. I've learned that age doesn't mean you're done. It means you're writing a different kind of chapter. You're not a relic, a finished book sitting on a shelf. You're a work in progress, and the ink is still wet. Pick up a new hobby, share a laugh, teach someone something you've learned over the years. Every moment you live is a new page, and you get to decide what it says. Don't let the number of years behind you fool you into thinking your story's over. Write something worth reading, right up until the very end. After 2 years in a nursing home, I've learned that aging isn't just about surviving. It's about choosing how to live. Choose connection over loneliness, effort over ease, curiosity over complacency, gratitude over resentment. It's not about having perfect health or endless youth. It's about making the most of what you have, right here, right now. I hope one of these lessons resonates with you, whether you're 20 or 90. Life is still yours to shape, and there's still so much beauty to be found if you're willing to look for it. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What's one thing you'll take away from this video, and how will you apply it in your life? Your thoughts mean the world to me, and they inspire me to keep sharing these stories. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear this. Your support helps us bring more meaningful content to you. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'll see you in the next video.